During this global pandemic, how many of you have decided to learn a new language to enrich your stay-at-home life? I know learning a new language is a tough process, and you may have an experience of giving up once or twice. On the other hand, some people are kind of born with multiple languages. I've seen a lot of bilingual or even trilingual people here in California. Those people have luckily been exposed to multiple languages as they grew up. Little bit of my background story. My parents are both Japanese, and I was born and raised in Japan for 18 years. You may know, Japan is a highly monoethnic country. 98.1% of the population is Japanese. Well, at least here in the US, especially in such a diverse state like California, you often hear people talking in some languages that you aren't familiar with. But life doesn't look like that in Japan. So, it was a little bit of a struggle when I moved here. But now people ask me, "How's your English so good?" That makes me very happy, by the way. Many people say if you want to learn a different language, just go there and talk to the people. Eventually, you'll learn the culture and the perspectives of the locals, and so I thought I'll get better at English in this way. Contrary to that idea, however, I realized that there was a turning point where I started improving my English significantly. I actually find it easier to learn English once I began considering things from the opposite direction. I recognize a deep relationship between languages and their cultures, and how learning these languages you could better adapt to the cultures you visited. So today, I will talk about how the language shapes the culture and our way of thinking. But before then, let me quickly tell you some benefits that you can get by being able to utilize two different languages. By being able to talk to different people, the amount of information you can get will be doubled. You will know something that you would never experience in your own community, and that broadens your perspective. This is our encounter with cultural differences. But furthermore, bilingual brain would even change your personality. When I think and speak in English, I can be much more confident than I could ever become when I think in Japanese. This is because language structure is deeply related to the way people think. Let's see. When you say something that is very easy for you, what do you say? Piece of cake. In Japanese, we say asameshi mae, meaning before breakfast. While piece of cake originates from the US historical background, before breakfast comes from your capability of work. Before breakfast, you're hungry and also have little time, so you only can get an easy job done. And this reflects Japanese culture itself. We highly value breakfast. As we see here, there are different ways of saying things. And what most people do when learning a new language is to see the world as they are in their native language and translate it into the other. I would say, "Oh, this homework is before breakfast to me." And English speakers just wonder what I was talking about. Unfortunately, there are also some expressions that are not translatable into the other language. Since expressions tend to be deeply related to the culture, you may not get a sense of it unless you fully understand the context. Different ways of thinking come from cultural differences. Like I said in the beginning, it's widely believed that you have to immerse yourself into the culture to improve your language ability. But not everyone is lucky enough to go to a foreign country and spend years over there. Especially in this time frame, we are all restricted to travel abroad. Also, there are some people who live in the country for a long time but never improve their language skills. So, I focused on a different aspect. What shapes the culture? There are multiple aspects to form a culture, but it is the sum of people's similar way of thinking. And the way of thinking is highly influenced by language. So, I focused on the structure of language, which is grammar. I will show you how the grammar affects our way of thinking. I asked my friends in Japan, what's your impression of Americans? The most common answers are, they look confident. What's your impression of Japanese people? Shy, polite, smart? Let me tell you my impression of Spanish speakers or Latin people. They're caring and loving. They treat everyone like their own family members. As a little side note, English and Spanish have certain similarities with their rules, such as order words. This is because they fall into a family of languages called Indo-European language. On the other hand, Japanese has completely different language roots. English and Spanish-speaking cultures are also both considered a part of Western culture, while Japan has a completely different culture. Here, we can see the language and the culture have deep relationship. Okay, let's look at each grammar closely. In English, subject and verb are necessary. That is, we always say, I go, you go, who goes. What the speaker is delivering is always his or her opinion. In Spanish, they don't really emphasize the subject. They can imply who's in action by changing the verbs. Voy, vas, va, vamos, van. What they do is more important than who does it. In Japanese, we use the same word but differentiate the meaning with tone and situation. Iku can mean I go, you go, we go, or shall we go? The speaker implies what she means, but ultimately it depends on whether the listener gets the intention or not. And this is why Japanese people have a sense of reading between the lines. Grammar, the structure of word or structure of the language, shapes how we see the world. And this is a part of the creation of cultural differences. So, here's 3 tips to attain fluency in your foreign languages without actually going there. Hopefully these help you understand the languages better by taking in their perspectives. First, learn how to pronounce the alphabets in that language. This is the most basic rule of the language, which helps you read the sentences more smoothly and accelerates your learning process. If you see this word for the first time, you might pronounce it kara-age. But if you're Japanese, you will pronounce it kara-age. Actually, Japanese people don't even use alphabets. We use hiragana instead. So, it is important to know how those alphabets are actually pronounced in that language. Second, learn grammar and see things in that specific rule. For example, in Japanese, there are no articles. So if we keep translating Japanese into English, we keep forgetting to put an article. But if you learn English grammar and see things in English way, we naturally put an article because articles have an important role in English. And lastly, habituate yourself to see the world in that language. Now you know how to read and how the grammar can express the meaning. What you need from here is to make your brain process it faster. In the beginning, you may have to think slowly or imagine the situation to make sense of what you're saying or hearing. But almost the same way as you start singing along with the song, when you keep listening to the same song over and over again, you unconsciously remember the word and expression. Your brain gets used to processing the information. Some people say you just have to go and interact with natives if you want to learn their language. However, if you don't have the basics, you wouldn't be able to understand what they're saying or you don't even know how to start the conversation. But if you know the grammar, you can be a little bit confident with your knowledge, so you can try it out and correct the errors. If you don't have any basics, or if you don't have any knowledge of cooking, you don't know where to start. But if you have a recipe, you can start cooking by following it, and eventually, you create your original recipe. Grammar is a recipe to create a sentence. By learning a specific rule of the language, we can create our new perspective. I call this language design. Through language, we design our new identity. Thank you. ありがとうございました。